Somebody needs to call Melanie Barnett, because Sidora and Pooch Hall just popped up together on camera again, and the comment sections turned into a full-blown intervention. If you know, you know, and if you don't, buckle up, because this one requires zero introduction. The internet already did the work for us the second this clip started circulating. Sidora and Pooch Hall linked up for a new project, and the second footage hit social media. Timelines split into two camps. People screaming with laughter and people typing "not again" in all caps. The pairing alone was enough to send viewers straight back to 2007. No context needed, no reminder required. That's the power of chemistry that once broke up a fictional couple on national television and apparently still has residual heat almost 2 decades later. Here's what actually happened. The two reunited on screen for a stage production, and clips from rehearsals and promotional materials started making rounds online. The moment people clocked both of their faces in the same frame, acting close, exchanging that familiar energy, the jokes wrote themselves. Captions like "somebody warn her" and "here we go again" started flooding replies before most people had even watched the full clip. The specific joke fueling this, "I'm calling med school," is a callback that only makes sense if you were watching television in the mid-2000s. Pooch Hall played Derwin Davis, a football player whose girlfriend Melanie was working toward her medical degree. Sidora played a singer who Derwin got tangled up with, and that entanglement is what blew up his entire relationship on screen in front of millions of viewers. So when these two reunite now in any capacity, fans immediately joke about alerting the fictional medical student because apparently the pattern is repeating itself in their eyes. It's a joke rooted in nostalgia, but it's landing because the actual footage gave people something to work with. Body language, eye contact, easy laughter between the two of them. None of it screamed, just professional colleagues. To viewers who've been trained by over a decade of internet culture to read chemistry into every frame, whether that chemistry is real or just two skilled performers doing their jobs, is beside the point. Perception moves faster than clarification ever will. Social media reactions ranged from playful to borderline unhinged in the best way. Quote posts and reposts stacked up, comparing the new footage side by side with old scenes from the show, overlaying them like some kind of forensic investigation. Some joked that Melanie should have seen this coming from a mile away. Others said the two of them owe an explanation for making an entire generation relive secondhand embarrassment from a storyline that ended before. Some of the people commenting were even born. The generational spread of the reaction says a lot. This wasn't just millennials clutching pearls. Gen Z jumped in too, discovering the original drama through the resurfaced clips and reacting like it just happened live. What's fascinating is how the joke mutated as it spread. What started as a simple "here we go again" caption quickly turned into an entire subgenre of content. People started making mock news alerts, styled like breaking headlines, warning a fictional character about a relationship that only exists in a show that ended production. Others leaned into full bits, narrating the reunion like a soap opera recap, complete with dramatic pauses and fake urgency. It stopped being a single joke and became a format other accounts could riff on, which is exactly how these moments tend to snowball into something bigger than the original clip ever intended. There's also a wave of commentary pointing out how wild it is that this dynamic still gets this kind of reaction after all these years. Two actors reuniting for legitimate creative work, and the audience response treats it like a soap opera plot twist. That says less about Drew and Pooch, and more about how deeply that storyline embedded itself in pop culture memory. People don't forget a good scandal, fictional or not, when it's delivered with the right amount of drama and a soundtrack to match. A smaller, but louder corner of the conversation focused less on the joke and more on the actual performances. People who followed both of their careers since started comparing their range now to what they were doing back then, noting how much more grounded and mature the new footage looks compared to the network television gloss of the early 2000s. That comparison added a layer the meme crowd wasn't really interested in. An actual acknowledgement that both of them have grown as performers, even if the internet mostly wants to talk about a fictional affair from 2 decades ago. Now here's where it gets more layered than a simple, old co-stars reunite story. This isn't a random crossover. The two of them teaming up again is tied to a stage play, one that's been described as centering on serious themes, including domestic violence and the long-term effects of unspoken family trauma. So while fans are out here cracking jokes about fictional infidelity from a network sitcom, the actual project bringing Drew and Pooch back together is handling much heavier material. That contrast hasn't gone unnoticed. A few commenters pumped the brakes on the joking to point out that the promotional buzz is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, pulling attention toward a production with a genuinely serious message, using nostalgia as the hook. That's the contradiction sitting underneath all the laughing and screenshotting. The clip is being consumed as comedy, as a here we go again moment, when the work itself is aiming for something far more sobering. It's a reminder that internet reaction cycles don't always match intent. People see two familiar faces, plug in an old joke, and run with it before digging into what the project is actually about. The creators clearly understand the power of that old storyline's residual fame, and they're using it, intentionally or not, to get eyeballs on something that deserves a more serious conversation, once people actually sit with it. Adding to that contradiction, some of the promotional language around the stage play leans heavily into themes of resilience, faith, and confronting silence around abuse, language that stands in stark contrast to the flirty, scandal-driven tone the internet immediately projected onto the reunion. It's a mismatch between marketing optics and actual substance, and it's not the first time a serious project has been introduced to the public through a lighter, more digestible entry point.
Well, how many women have you slept with?
Whether that strategy helps or hurts long-term interest in the play is still an open question, since audiences who show up expecting a laugh might not be prepared for the weight of what they'll actually see. Industry response so far has stayed fairly muted, which tracks. This isn't a controversy in the traditional sense. Nobody's being accused of anything. Nothing scandalous happened off script. What's circulating is pure audience reaction to a marketing rollout that happened to hit a nostalgia nerve harder than probably anyone anticipated. Entertainment commentary accounts have mostly leaned into the humor angle, repackaging the clips with their own captions, milking the Derwin's at it again bit for engagement. A few have pointed out that this kind of organic buzz, jokes and all, is basically free promotion money can't buy. You can't manufacture a reaction like this. It only works because the original storyline actually mattered to people watching at the time. There's also chatter about how effective this kind of stunt casting can be for smaller stage productions trying to break through a crowded entertainment news cycle. Getting two recognizable names from a beloved show back in the same room, even briefly, guarantees a certain baseline of attention that a brand new cast wouldn't automatically generate. Whether that was the strategic thinking behind the pairing or a happy accident of timing, it's working. People who had zero awareness of the stage play a week ago are now aware of its existence purely because of a joke about a fictional medical student. Beyond the individual project, this moment fits into a broader trend of theater and independent productions leaning on television nostalgia to sell tickets. It's not a new strategy, but it's rarely been this effective this fast. Usually these reunions get a polite write-up and a modest bump in ticket sales. This one turned into an actual moment, the target demographic for the play in the first place, but got pulled in anyway, because the internet loves nothing more than resurrecting old drama with a fresh punchline attached. As for possible consequences here, there really isn't scandal fallout to speak of, but there is a shift happening in how the conversation is developing. What started as pure comedy is slowly turning into actual curiosity about the project itself. Some of the same accounts that posted the jokes are now following up with posts explaining what the stage play is actually about, walking back the "here we go again" framing once they realize the subject matter is far from lighthearted. That pivot matters. It shows the audience is capable of moving past the meme phase into genuine interest, provided the information reaches them. There's also the ongoing ripple effect of nostalgia content in general right now. Old shows, old storylines, old on-screen pairings keep resurfacing because audiences are actively hungry for callbacks to media that shaped them. This moment fits neatly into that pattern. It's not really about Sidora and Pooch Hall doing anything new or shocking. It's about an audience primed to relive familiar drama the second two familiar faces share a frame. The "I'm calling med school" gag isn't really about them. It's about a generation's collective memory of a storyline that's stuck. What's interesting is how quickly the narrative could shift again, depending on how the stage play itself performs once it's actually seen by audiences. If it lands the way it's being described, tackling something as serious as domestic violence with real depth, this whole moment could end up being remembered as the funny internet reaction that accidentally introduced people to something meaningful. If it doesn't land, the joke fades and nobody remembers the reunion happened at all past this week's news cycle. Either way, the two of them just proved that old chemistry, even fictional chemistry from a canceled network show, still has enough juice to trend. There's one more angle worth sitting with here, how this whole cycle reveals just how much control audiences now have over how a project gets introduced to the world. Nobody planned for a single clip to become a meme template. Nobody scripted the comparisons, the mock headlines, or the generational debate in the replies. The actual creative team behind the play put out material meant to promote a serious story, and the internet took that raw material and built its own separate narrative on top of it, one rooted entirely in nostalgia and comedic timing rather than the intended message. That gap between what was made and how it was received says a lot about who actually controls a story's momentum once it's out in the wild. The bigger takeaway here isn't really about Drew or Pooch individually. It's about how audiences engage with nostalgia now. A decade ago, this reunion might have gotten a few blog posts and moved on. Now it's memes, side-by-side comparisons, generational debates in the replies, and a slow pivot from comedy to actual awareness about the project's real subject matter, all within the same news cycle. That's the modern entertainment ecosystem working exactly as designed. Jokes first, depth later, and somewhere in between. An audience that stayed engaged the entire time without even realizing they were being pulled towards something more substantial than a punchline about a fictional med student who never saw it coming.